The alarm woke Zixthar from his sleep at 4 in the morning, station time. He dragged his long body from the sleeping pod and checked the communication device with 3 of his arms, now rubbing his tired eyes with the 4th. What he saw made his blood run cold. A distress signal was coming from Varith 7, a small mining colony near the edge of council space. The message played automatically, and he heard the voice of Colony Director Melnock, broken and desperate. "This is Varith 7 calling any council ship in range. We are under attack. The Krell have come with 40 ships. Our defense systems are down. They are breaking through the colony walls. We have 3,000 people here, families, children. Please, someone help us. We have maybe 3 days before they break through completely. Please." Zixthar felt his heart sink. He knew the procedures. He knew the rules. He had been on the Galactic Council for 20 years, representing his people, and he had seen situations like this before. The Council would file the emergency report. They would debate which species had jurisdiction over that sector. They would approve a rescue mission. They would gather ships from 3 different fleets because no single species kept enough military vessels in one place. They would plan the route, gather supplies, and coordinate the operation. All of this would take time. Lots of time. At least 6 weeks, probably more. The people on Varith 7 had 3 days. Maybe less. He went to the emergency session that morning with a heavy heart. The council chamber was full of representatives from 30 different species. They all looked worried. They all wanted to help. But they all knew the reality. Space was big. Ships were slow. Bureaucracy was slower. They talked for 3 hours about what could be done. Some suggested sending a small, fast ship, but everyone knew that one ship against 40 Krell raiders would be suicide. Others suggested negotiating with the Krell. But the Krell Dominion did not negotiate when they smelled profit. They took what they wanted. Marcus Webb, the human ambassador, sat quietly through most of the meeting. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. Humans had only joined the Galactic Council 2 years ago, and most species still did not know much about them. Earth was far away from the center of council space. Humans were newcomers. They did not say much in meetings. They mostly listened and learned. Zixthar finally turned to the human ambassador and said what everyone was thinking. "I am sorry, Ambassador Webb. I know your people value life greatly, but we cannot reach Varith 7 in time. The mathematics are clear. Even our fastest ships would take 5 weeks. The colony will fall long before that." He did not look upset or angry. He just looked thoughtful. "How many people are on Varith 7? He asked. 3,000, give or take. 6 different species. Mostly miners and their families, Zixthar replied. "And the Krell have 40 ships there?" "Yes, raiders. They want the mining equipment, and they will take the people as slaves. It is what they do." Webb stood up from his seat. "Thank you for the information, Councilmember Zixthar. If you will excuse me, I need to make a call." The other council members watched as the human ambassador left the chamber. They assumed he was going to report the sad news to his government. They continued their meeting, discussing what they would do after the colony fell. How they would respond to Krell aggression? What sanctions they might impose? All the things that governments do after tragedy strikes when it is too late to save anyone. 2 hours later, Zixa received a message from human headquarters. He read it 3 times because he could not believe what it said. He rushed back to the council chamber, where the meeting was still going on. He interrupted the current speaker, something he never did. "Forgive me, but I have just received word from humanity's military command. They are responding to the Varith 7 situation." The room went quiet. Ambassador Webb had returned and sat calmly in his seat. "What kind of response?" asked Council Member Trilex from the Scientific Guild. "Are they sending a negotiation team?" "No," Zixthar said, looking at his communication device again to make sure he had read it correctly. "They are sending their 3rd fleet." The room exploded in confused chatter. Fleet? Why would anyone send a fleet? This was a rescue mission, not a war. Several council members turned to look at Marcus Webb. He sat quietly, his hands folded on the desk in front of him. Ambassador Webb Zixthar said carefully. Perhaps there is a translation error. Did your people mean to say they are sending a rescue ship? No translation error, Webb replied calmly. The Third Fleet was conducting training exercises 2 systems away from Varith 7. Admiral Sarah. Chen has redirected the fleet to respond to the distress call. They should arrive at Varith 7 in approximately 38 hours. 38 hours? Several council members said at once. That is impossible. Human ships can push their engines harder than standard council regulations allow, Webb explained. It puts stress on the systems and it is not comfortable for the crew, but it can be done when lives are at stake. But why a fleet? Asked Trillix. Surely a few ships would be sufficient for a rescue operation. Marcus Webb looked around the room at all the alien faces staring at him. These were good people, he knew. They wanted to help. They cared about the people on Varith 7, but they came from worlds where evolution had been kinder. Where survival had been easier, they did not understand. Councilmember Trilix Webb said slowly, when humans hear that people are in danger, we do not send what is sufficient. We send what is overwhelming. The Third Fleet consists of 12 warships, 8 support vessels, and 5,000 Marines. It is perhaps more than necessary, but we have a saying on Earth, we do not leave people behind. Not ever. Not when we have the power to do something about it. The council chamber fell silent. Zixthar felt a strange sensation in his body. It was not quite fear, but it was close. He was beginning to understand something about humanity that the council had not considered when they welcomed Earth into the galactic community. Humans came from a Class 12 death world. Life on Earth had been brutal and unforgiving. Humanity had evolved not just to survive, but to fight for survival every single day. The Third Fleet will arrive at Varith 7 in 38 hours, Webb continued. Admiral Chen has been authorized to use any means necessary to secure the safety of the colonists. The Krell raiders will be given one chance to withdraw peacefully, and if they do not withdraw, Zixthar asked, though he thought he already knew the answer. Marcus Webb's expression did not change. His voice remained calm and professional, but his eyes held something that made Zixthar's blood run cold. Then the Third Fleet will remove them. The meeting ended shortly after that. There was nothing more to discuss. The council had failed to reach Varith 7 in time, but humanity had not failed. As Zixthar returned to his quarters that night, he could not stop thinking about what he had seen in the human ambassador's eyes. It was not cruelty. It was not hatred. It was something far more terrifying. It was certainty. The absolute certainty that humanity would do whatever it took to save those 3,000 people. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened someone under humanity's protection. And Zixthar suspected that the lesson would be written in fire, and the fury that the Krell Dominion would never forget. Admiral Sarah. Chen stood on the bridge of the UHN's Indomitable and watched her crew work with practiced efficiency. The Third Fleet had been running training exercises near the Kepler Belt when the orders came through. Redirect to Varith 7. Colonists under attack. Krell raiders. No time for debate or discussion. Just action. She was 52 years old and had spent 30 of those years in space. She had seen combat twice before, both times against pirates who thought human cargo ships were easy targets. They had learned otherwise. Now she was taking 12 warships, 8 support vessels, and 5,000 Marines toward a mining colony that most humans had never heard of. To save people from species she had only met in briefings. We have the final numbers from intelligence, said Commander Parks, her second-in-command. 43 Krell vessels confirmed at Varith 7, mix of raiders and support craft. They have the colony surrounded and are breaching the main habitat dome. Time to arrival? 37 hours if we maintain current speed. We can push the engines harder and get there in 34, but it will mean repairs afterward. Sarah did not hesitate. Push them. I want every ship ready for combat the moment we drop out of FTL. Have the Marines prep for boarding actions. Full combat load. Yes, Admiral. Behind her, the bridge crew continued their work. These were young men and women, most in their 20s and 30s. They had joined the Space Navy for adventure, to see the galaxy, to be part of humanity's reach into the stars. None of them had expected to go to war, but every single one of them had volunteered to push their ships harder, to go faster, to get to Varus 7 before it was too late. That was the thing about humans, Sarah thought. When someone needed help, humans did not calculate the cost. They just helped. Across the fleet, the same scene repeated on every ship. Marines checked their weapons and armor. Engineers pushed the fusion drives beyond safe limits. Medical teams prepared for casualties. Everyone did their part because 3,000 people they had never met were counting on them. In the mess hall of the UHNS Valkyrie, Sergeant Marcus Rodriguez sat with his squad and went over the mission brief. "Listen up," he said, looking at the 8 Marines under his command. "We have Krell raiders holding a mining colony. The Krell are bigger than us, stronger than us, and they have claws that can tear through metal. They are experienced fighters who have raided dozens of colonies. So why do you look happy, Sarge?" asked Private Chen, a young woman from New Beijing. Rodriguez grinned. "Because the Krell have never fought Marines. They have never fought humans. They think strength and claws are all that matter in combat. They are about to learn that humans fight different. We fight smart. We fight mean. And we never, ever give up." The squad nodded. They had trained for this. Humanity had learned long ago on Earth that size and strength did not always win battles. Humans were not the biggest or strongest animals on Earth, but they had become the dominant species anyway. They had done it through intelligence, through tools, through cooperation, and through sheer stubborn refusal to quit. Now they would teach the galaxy that same lesson, back on the Indomitable. Admiral Chen received a communication from Ambassador Webb at the Galactic Council. "Admiral, the Council is concerned about the scale of your response. They worry that sending a fleet might escalate the situation into a larger conflict with the Krell Dominion." Sarah understood their concern. The Council came from species that had evolved on gentler worlds. They thought about diplomacy and careful responses. They measured their actions to avoid escalation. It was not a bad way to think. It had kept the galaxy mostly peaceful for centuries. But it also meant that raiders and pirates could attack weak targets and be gone before help arrived. It meant that 3,000 people on Varith 7 would die or be enslaved because careful responses took too long. "Ambassador Webb," she replied, "please inform the Council that humanity did not choose escalation. The Krell chose escalation when they attacked civilians. We are simply responding with sufficient force to ensure the safety of those civilians. If the Krell want to avoid conflict, they can leave. If they choose to stay, that is their decision."
Admiral.
"The Council also wants to know what you plan to do when you arrive. We are going to give the Krell one warning. If they do not withdraw immediately, we will remove them by force. We will try to minimize casualties, even Krell casualties. But the safety of the colonists is our absolute priority. If the Krell use the colonists as shields or hostages, we will adapt our tactics accordingly. The Council is not used to such direct military action." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "I know, Ambassador. But humanity is not the Council. We come from a world where everything wanted to kill us, where survival meant fighting every day, where the only way to protect your people was to be so dangerous that predators learned to leave you alone. We brought that lesson with us to the stars." The communication ended and Sarah returned to watching her crew work. 34 hours until they reached Varith 7. 34 hours for the Krell to make their choice. She hoped they would choose to withdraw peacefully. She really did. But she knew they probably would not. The Krell had been raiding colonies for decades without serious opposition. They thought they were the apex predators of this region of space. They were about to meet a species that had hunted every apex predator on their own world to near extinction. "Lieutenant," Commander Jackson approached the Admiral's chair. "Admiral, I have a question. The Krell outnumber us 4-1. Their ships are designed for combat, just like ours. What if we cannot win?" Sarah looked at the young officer. He was asking the right questions. "That was good. Lieutenant, do you know why humans dominated Earth despite being weaker than bears, slower than cheetahs, and smaller than elephants? Superior intelligence, Admiral?" but mostly because humans never fight fair. We use every advantage we can find. The Krell ships are designed for combat against Council vessels. Council vessels use energy shields and plasma weapons. We use kinetic weapons. Solid slugs fired at a fraction of light speed. Nuclear missiles. Technology that the Council considers primitive and barbaric. The Krell shields are not designed to stop that kind of attack. And if their shields adapt, then we send in the Marines. Humans are very good at close quarters combat. We practiced on each other for thousands of years before we reached the stars. Jackson nodded slowly. The Council thinks we are too aggressive. The Council has never had to fight for survival, Sarah replied. They do not understand that sometimes the most peaceful option is to be so strong that no one dares to attack you in the first place. After today, the Krell will think twice before raiding any colony. Not because we destroyed them, but because they will understand what it means to fight Deathworlders. The hours ticked by. The fleet rushed through space faster than was safe or comfortable. In the crew quarters, people tried to sleep, but most could not. They thought about the colonists on Varith 7. They thought about the coming battle. They thought about home and family and all the reasons they had joined the Navy in the first place, and they thought about the one thing that every human understood deep in their bones. The thing that made humanity different from the careful, measured species of the Galactic Council. When someone cried for help, humans answered, not with just enough help to make a difference. Not with carefully measured responses designed to avoid escalation. Humans answered with everything they had. They answered with fury and fire and a determination that came from a million years of fighting. For survival on a world that had tried every day to kill them. The galaxy was about to learn what that meant. And the Krell Raiders on Varith 7 were about to become teachers of a lesson they did not want to teach. Commander Vexilon of the Krell Dominion stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched his crews work on breaking through the last defenses of Varith 7. For days they had been here, and the colony was almost his. The mining equipment alone would be worth a fortune. The 3,000 colonists would sell for good money in the slave markets. It was a profitable raid, one of his best. The Krell were a warrior species. Tall and powerful, with thick, armor-like skin and natural weapons. They had been raiding the outer colonies for decades. The Galactic Council always protested, always threatened sanctions, but they never actually did anything. By the time Council ships arrived, the Krell were long gone with their prizes. It was a good business, and Vexilon was good at his business. Commander, we have a new contact, said his sensor officer. 12 ships just dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system. Vexilon barely looked up. Council vessels? Unknown, Commander? The signatures do not match any Council military ships in our database. Probably some merchant fleet that got lost. Ignore them. Focus on the colony. But 20 minutes later, the sensor officer spoke again, and this time there was concern in his voice. Commander, those 12 ships are heading directly toward us. They are moving fast. Very fast. And I am now reading 8 additional support vessels with them. Vexilon moved to the sensor station. 20 ships total. Still outnumbered by his 43 vessels, but something bothered him. Those ships were moving faster than they should be able to move. He pulled up the sensor data and felt his confidence waver for the first time. The energy signatures were massive. These ships were pushing their engines well beyond safe limits. Yes. Send a message to those ships. Tell them this is Krell territory and they should leave immediately. The communication officer worked for a moment, then looked up. Commander, we have a response. It is from someone called Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Human Navy ship Indomitable Humans. Vexilon had heard of humans. They were newcomers to the Council. From some backwater planet far from civilized space. What do humans want here? The message is simple, Commander. It says, release the colonists. Withdraw immediately. This is your only warning, Vexilon laughed. His officers joined him. Humans were sending warnings? Humans had been in space for barely 10 years. The Krell had been warriors for 1,000 years. Send them back a message. Tell them that if they do not leave, We will add their ships to our collection. The human response came back within seconds. Understood. You have made your choice. That was all. Just those 5 words. Something about it made Vexilon uneasy. He pulled up everything his database had on humans. Not much information. Earth was listed as a Class 12 death world, whatever that meant. Humans were classified as Tua losers, moderate strength, standard biology. Nothing impressive. Nothing to worry about, Commander. The human ships have increased speed. They will be in weapon range in 15 minutes. Battle stations, Vexilon ordered. This would be a quick fight. 12 human ships against his 43. The humans would learn today why the Krell Dominion was feared. Target their lead ship. We will destroy it first to teach them respect. The 15 minutes passed. The human fleet came into range. Vexilon gave the order to fire. His ships opened up with plasma cannons, the standard weapon used by every species in the galaxy. The green bolts of superheated plasma streaked toward the human ships, and the human ships dodged. Vexilon stared at his screen in disbelief. Ships that size should not be able to move like that. They twisted and turned with impossible agility, their engines burning bright as they avoided most of the plasma fire. The few shots that did hit splashed against shields that flared and held. Return fire, he ordered, waiting to see what weapons the humans had. What happened next would haunt him for the rest of his life. The human ships did not fire plasma. They did not fire lasers. They fired metal. Solid chunks of metal accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed by magnetic rails. The railgun slugs crossed the distance in seconds. They hit Krell's shields designed to disperse energy weapons. The shields failed instantly. The slugs punched through shields, through armor, through entire ships. 3 Krell raiders exploded in the first volley. Just exploded. Gone. 300 warriors dead in seconds. Evasive action. Vexilon shouted, but his ships were not built for agility. They were built for strength and armor. Against plasma weapons, that worked. Against solid metal moving at relativistic speeds, armor meant nothing. Another volley. 2 more ships destroyed. Then the humans fired something else. Missiles. But not normal missiles. These missiles had nuclear warheads. Vexilon had read about nuclear weapons. They were banned by every civilized species as too destructive, too indiscriminate. Only primitive species still used them. The nuclear missiles detonated among his fleet. The expanding fireballs consumed 2 more ships. The electromagnetic pulses fried the electronics on 5 others, leaving them drifting and helpless. All ships concentrate fire on the human flagship. Vexilon ordered desperately. If they could destroy the Admiral's ship, maybe the others would retreat. His remaining ships focused their plasma cannons on the Indomitable. The human shields glowed bright under the assault. For a moment, Vexilon thought they might break through. Then the human ship rotated, presenting a different shield facing, and kept firing. The return volley destroyed 4 more Krell ships. It had been 7 minutes since the battle started. Vexilon had lost 16 ships. 16. Against 12 human vessels. It was impossible. It was not how battles worked. The stronger force was supposed to win. The Krell were warriors. They had conquered dozens of species. They could not be losing to newcomers. Commander, 3 Krell ships near the colony are reporting they have grabbed colonists as hostages. They request orders. Vexilon made a decision born of desperation. Tell them to threaten to kill the hostages unless the humans withdraw. The message went out. The human response was not what he expected. Instead of withdrawing, instead of negotiating, something new appeared on his sensors. Small objects launching from the human ships. Hundreds of them. Each one with its own propulsion and life signs. What are those? Vexilon demanded. Unknown, Commander? They appear to be ... individuals. In armor. Moving through space. Marines. The humans had sent their Marines. The armored figures crossed the empty space. Between the fleets using personal thrusters, they moved with purpose, toward the 3 Krell ships holding hostages. Vexilon watched as they attached to the hulls, cut through the armor with some kind of plasma torch, and entered the ships. His officers on those ships started screaming over the communication channel. The humans were inside. They were fighting in the corridors. The Krell warriors tried to stop them, tried to use their size and strength and natural weapons. It did not matter. The humans moved through the ships like demons, their weapons firing with deadly precision. They are in armor. One Krell captain shouted over the communication. Our claws cannot penetrate. They are shooting my warriors. They are coordinating perfectly. They do not stop. Even wounded, they keep fighting. What are these creatures? The communication cut off. Then another. Then the third. Within 20 minutes, all 3 ships were silent. Then they sent a message. Ships secure. All hostages safe. 0 colonist casualties. 47 Krell prisoners secured. Vexilon looked at what remained of his fleet. He had started with 43 ships. He now had 19 that were still combat capable. The human fleet had not lost a single vessel. Not one. Their shields were battered but holding. Their weapons were still firing. And their marines had just cleared 3 ships in close combat without harming a single hostage. Admiral Chen's voice came over the communication again. Commander Vexilon, you were given a warning. You chose to ignore it. Your fleet is broken. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to galactic law. Continue fighting, and we will destroy every single one of your ships. Vexilon looked at his remaining officers. He saw fear in their eyes. The Krell did not know fear. They were the predators. They were the warriors. But humans had just taught them what it meant to face a true apex predator. A species that had evolved on a world so deadly that they had learned to fight everything, including each other. All ships cease fire, Vexilon said quietly. We surrender. The battle had lasted 17 minutes total. The galaxy would talk about those 17 minutes for generations. The day the Krell Dominion learned that there was a new power in the galaxy. A power that did not send help when colonies called for aid. They sent fleets. The colonists of Vera 7 stood in the main dome and stared at the human marines. Director Melnock, a tall insectoid from the Chitari species, found himself shaking as he watched the armored soldiers move through his colony. 4 days ago, he had sent a distress call to the Galactic Council, knowing that help would come too late. 3 days ago, the Krell had broken through the outer defenses and started taking hostages. 2 days ago, he had accepted that he and everyone in the colony would be dead or enslaved by the end of the week now. Barely for hours after the human fleet arrived, the Krell were gone, defeated, captured, and humans were walking through the colony serving hot food to traumatize families. Melnock watched as a human marine, her armor scarred from combat, knelt down beside a young Vareth child who was crying. The child was from a species that looked like small bear-like creatures covered in soft fur. The marine removed her helmet, revealing a young human female with dark skin and kind eyes. She spoke softly to the child, offered him a piece of chocolate from her ration pack, and stayed with him until his parents came. This same marine had been in combat less than an hour ago. Melnock had seen the reports. The Marines had cleared 3 Krell ships in close quarters combat. Hand-to-hand fighting in zero gravity against warriors twice their size, and they had one without losing a single Marine and without harming a single hostage. Now that same warrior was comforting a child and making him smile. Director Melnock. A voice came from behind him. He turned to see a human officer approaching. The man's uniform identified him as Commander Parks from the UHN's Indomitable. Commander, we do not know how to thank you. Your fleet saved us all. Parks smiled, a gesture that Melnock had learned meant friendliness among humans. No thanks necessary, Director. We just did what anyone would do. But that is not true, Melnock replied. The Galactic Council could not reach us in time. Their ships were too far away, their procedures too slow. We had accepted death. Then you came. We happened to be close by during training exercises. Good timing. Good timing, Melnock repeated. You came to systems in less than 2 days. You fought 43 ships with 12. You won in 17 minutes. That is not good timing, Commander. That is something else entirely. Parks looked at the Marine playing with the Varith child. Director, can I tell you something about humans? We come from a planet that spent millions of years trying to kill us. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, and eventually each other. We learned that the only way to survive was to protect our group, our tribe, our family. When humanity went to space, we did not leave that instinct behind. Every sentient species in the galaxy became our tribe. But we are not human. We are 6 different species in this colony alone. We are aliens to you. Aliens is just a word, Park said. You are people. You called for help. That makes you our responsibility now. Over the next 3 days, the colonists watched as the humans worked. Medical teams moved through the colony, treating injuries. Not just injuries from the Krell attack, but old injuries that the colony's limited medical facilities had never been able to handle properly. A human doctor named Chen spent 6 hours in surgery repairing the damaged arm of a Varith engineer who had been injured in a mining accident years ago. When the engineer asked why, since it was not related to the raid, Chen had looked confused by the question. Your arm was broken. I am a doctor. Why would I not fix it? Human engineers worked alongside colony maintenance crews to repair the damaged sections of the habitat dome. They did not just patch the breaches. They upgraded the entire defense system, installed better sensors, and taught the colonists how to use them. When Melnock said the colony could not afford such expensive upgrades, the human engineer just shrugged and said that they had extra equipment on the supply ships and might as well put it to good use. The Marines trained the colony security force. They showed them tactics, taught them about weapons, and ran drills. Sergeant Rodriguez spent an entire day teaching the security team how to fortify positions and create overlapping fields of fire. You should never have to use this, he told them. But if the Krell or anyone else comes back, you will be ready. Will they come back? Asked one of the security officers, a nervous young Chitauri named Zekalon. No, Rodriguez said flatly. Word of what happened here will spread. The Krell know now what happens when they attack people under human protection. They will find easier targets elsewhere. But we are not under human protection. We are just a random colony that you happen to save, Rodriguez smiled, the same kind smile that Parks had shown. You called for help. We answered, that makes you our responsibility. Any raider who comes here now knows they will have to answer to the human fleet. Trust me, they will think twice. On the 3rd day, Council member Zixthar arrived with the official Galactic Council rescue mission. He brought 6 ships, medical supplies, and a diplomatic team ready to negotiate with the Krell. What he found shocked him to his core. The colony was not just saved, it was thriving. The breaches were repaired. The defenses were upgraded. The colonists were healthy, fed, and safe. The Krell prisoners were secured in a temporary facility, being held in conditions that met all galactic standards for prisoner treatment, and the humans were preparing to leave. Admiral Chen met with Zixa on the Indomitable. Council member, thank you for coming. We have secured the Krell prisoners for transport to Council custody. All colonists are accounted for and safe. The colony infrastructure has been repaired and upgraded. We will be departing in 6 hours. Zixthar looked at the human admiral with all 4 of his eyes. Admiral Chen, I must ask, why did you do all this? You saved the colony? Yes, that was your mission. But you also repaired everything. You upgraded their defenses. You treated medical conditions unrelated to the attack. You have been serving them food from your own supplies? Why? Chen looked puzzled by the question. Because they needed help, council member. But the cost, the resources, the time. Your government must be concerned about such expenditure. Our government authorized us to ensure the safety of the colonists. We ensured their safety. How we accomplished that was left to our discretion. Zixthar was quiet for a moment. Then he asked the question that he had been afraid to ask. Admiral, what would you have done if the Krell had killed hostages? If they had harmed the colonists before you could save them? The Admiral's expression did not change, but something cold appeared in her eyes. something that reminded Zixthar that humans came from a death world. Then we would not have taken prisoners, council member. And the Krell Dominion would have learned a very painful lesson about why you do not harm people that humans have decided to protect. Would have gone to war. Over 3,000 colonists you had never met. Yes, but why? It makes no tactical sense. No economic sense. No political sense. Chen stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at Vareth 7 floating peacefully in space. Council member, let me tell you about Earth. On Earth, there was a species called wolves. Powerful predators? Dangerous? But about 40,000 years ago, some wolves started hanging around human camps. They ate our scraps. Eventually, they started helping us hunt. We domesticated them. We turned them into dogs. Today, humans will spend their entire savings to treat a sick dog. We will run into burning buildings to rescue dogs. We will cross cities in snowstorms to check on a neighbor's dog. Do you know why? No, Admiral. I do not. Because once something is part of our pack, we protect it, no matter the cost. The colonists on Vareth 7 called for help. That made them part of humanity's pack, and humans protect their pack. Zixthar left the meeting feeling like he had learned something fundamental about humanity, something the Galactic Council had missed when they assessed Earth. The reports had focused on human technology, human resources, human political systems. But they had missed the most important thing. Humans formed bonds, not just with other humans, with anyone. And once those bonds formed, humans would move heaven and earth to protect them. It was not rational. It was not efficient. But it was absolutely terrifying to anyone who might threaten someone that humans considered part of their pack. As Zixthar's ship prepared to leave, he watched the human fleet depart. They went back to their training exercises as if they had not just changed galactic politics forever, as if saving 3,000 lives and defeating a Krell. Raiding fleet was just another day at work. Director Melnock stood in the colony's command center and watched the human ships leave. His deputy, a young Vareth named Kilton, stood beside him. "They are gone," she said sadly. "We are alone again." "No," Melnock said, thinking about his conversations with the humans over the past 3 days. "We are not alone. Not anymore. The humans came when we called. They will come again if we need them. That is what they do." 3 months after the Vareth 7 incident, Ambassador Marcus Webb stood before the full assembly of the Galactic Council. The chamber was packed. Representatives from every member species had come to hear what humanity had to say about the events at Vareth 7. Some were supportive. Many were concerned. A few were openly hostile. Ambassador Webb began High Counselor Trelmock, an elderly representative from one of the founding species. The Council acknowledges that humanity saved the Vareth 7 colony. For this, we are grateful. However, we must address concerns about human military doctrine. Your response to the Vareth 7 situation was extremely aggressive. 12 warships for a rescue mission. Nuclear weapons. Close quarters combat. The Council fears that humanity's approach to conflict resolution may destabilize the careful peace we have maintained. Webb stood calmly at the speaker's podium. He had expected this. He had prepared for it. "High Counselor, I understand your concerns. But I must respectfully point out that the Council's careful peace did not save the people of Vareth 7. The Council's procedures, regulations, and cautious approach would have arrived 6 weeks too late. Those 3,000 people would have been dead or enslaved. Humanity's aggressive response, as you call it, saved every single life, but at what cost?" asked Council Member Drixel, a military specialist from the ordained species. "You deployed overwhelming force against a raiding party. You used weapons that civilized species abandoned centuries ago. You boarded enemy vessels and engaged in close combat. This is not how conflicts are resolved in the modern galaxy. And perhaps," Webb said quietly, "the modern galaxy needs to reconsider how it resolves conflicts." "Councilmember Drixel, may I ask you a question? How many colonies have been raided by the Krell in the past 10 years? Drixel consulted his data tablet. 43 verified incidents. And how many of those raids were stopped by Council forces? There was a long pause. None. By the time Council ships arrive, the raiders are always gone. Exactly. The Krell have operated with impunity for a decade because they know the Council cannot respond fast enough. They attack, they take what they want, and they leave. The Council files protests, imposes sanctions, has diplomatic discussions, and then the Krell do it again. Webb looked around the chamber at all the representatives. Since Vareth 7, how many colonies have been raided by the Krell? None, Zixthar answered from his seat. Krell raiding activity has stopped completely in Council space. Not because of diplomacy, Webb continued. Not because of sanctions. But because the Krell learned that if they raid a colony, they might face humanity. And they now know what happens when you face humanity in battle. We did not want to teach that lesson, but it needed to be taught. You speak of necessary violence as if it is something to be proud of, said Council Member Silver, a representative from a species known for their pacifism. I'm not proud of violence, Council Member. I wish we lived in a galaxy where violence was never necessary. But we do not. There are species like the Krell who prey on the weak. There are raiders and pirates and slavers who do not care about Council resolutions or diplomatic protests. They only understand strength. Webb paused. Let me tell you something about humanity that you need to understand. We come from a planet that the Council classifies as Class 12 Deathworld. Do you know what that means? It means Earth is a dangerous planet, Silvar replied. It means Earth tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. Predators that could tear us apart. Diseases that could wipe out entire populations, whether that could freeze or cook us. Other humans who wanted our resources, we survived all of it. Not by being peaceful, not by being diplomatic, by being tough, by being smart, by protecting our own. And by being so dangerous that predators learned to avoid us, Webb activated a holographic display. It showed images of Earth, vast oceans, dense jungles, frozen tundras, scorching deserts. Every environment on Earth is hostile to human life. We had to adapt to all of them. We had to outsmart predators bigger and stronger than us. We had to outlast diseases and disasters. We did not do it alone. We did it by forming groups, tribes, communities, and we learned that the survival of the group was more important than the survival of the individual. The display changed to show images of the Vareth 7 colony. Happy families going about their lives, children playing, workers in the mines. When we heard that 3,000 people were in danger, we did not see aliens. We did not see strangers. We saw people who needed help. And our instinct, the instinct that allowed humanity to survive on Earth, told us to protect them. By any means necessary, but humanity cannot protect every colony in the galaxy, Trelmac argued. The scale is impossible. You are correct, High Counselor. We cannot protect everyone, but here is what we can do. We can respond to distress calls. We can train colony defense forces. We can patrol shipping lanes. We can hunt pirates. And most importantly, we can make it very clear to anyone considering an attack. If you harm people under human protection, you will answer to humanity. And humanity does not fight fair. Sounds like a threat, Drixel said. It is a promise, Webb corrected. A promise to every colony, every civilian ship, every peaceful settlement in Council space. Call for help, and humanity will answer. Maybe not every time, maybe not instantly, but we will come. And when we arrive, we will bring everything we have. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species were excited by humanity's pledge. Others were worried. The debate went on for hours. But something had changed in the galaxy that day. Something fundamental. Over the next few weeks, 17 frontier colonies sent formal requests to humanity. They wanted protection agreements. They wanted training for their defense forces. They wanted the certainty that if the raiders came, humanity would answer the call. The Council was concerned about humanity's growing influence, but they could not deny the results. Raiding activity along the frontier had dropped by 80%. Slavers were avoiding Council space entirely. The mere possibility of facing human forces was enough to make predators look elsewhere for prey. 6 months after Vareth 7, Ambassador Webb received a communication from Admiral Chen. The Third Fleet had just completed another mission, a cargo vessel under attack by pirates. The fleet had been 3 systems away. They arrived in time to save the crew and capture the pirates. 0 casualties. The Admiral's report ended with a simple statement: mission accomplished. Returning to patrol duties. Webb smiled as he read the report. This was who humans were. This was what they did. The galaxy had species that were stronger, species that were smarter, species with better technology or longer history. But humanity had something unique. They had spent 1,000,000 years learning to survive the impossible, and they had learned that survival meant protecting each other. Now they had brought that lesson to the stars. Every species in the galaxy was part of humanity's tribe now, whether they knew it or not, whether they wanted it or not. If they called for help, humans would come, not with carefully measured responses, not with diplomatic solutions, with fleets, with marines. With overwhelming force and absolute determination, Webb stood at the viewport of the human embassy station and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, people were living their lives in peace because they knew humanity was watching. Somewhere out there, a colony was not being raided because the raiders feared human response. Somewhere out there, families were safe because humans had decided that safety was non-negotiable. The Galactic Council still worried about human aggression. They still debated human methods. They still wanted humanity to be more careful, more measured, more diplomatic. And humanity would try. They would use diplomacy when possible. They would follow Council procedures when practical. They would be good members of the galactic community. But when someone cried for help, when lives were in danger, when predators attacked the innocent, humanity would revert to their nature. They would become what Earth had made them. They would become the apex predators who protected their pack. They would send fleets. They would send marines. They would send everything they had, because that was what Deathworlders did. They did not just survive the impossible. They made sure no one else had to face the impossible alone. The galaxy was learning this lesson. Some were learning it with gratitude, like the colonists of Vareth 7. Some were learning it with fear, like the Krell Dominion. But everyone was learning the same truth. Humanity did not send help. They sent fleets. And nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. Deep in Krell space, Commander Vexilon sat in his cell on a Council prison station. He had been tried and convicted of raiding, piracy, and attempted enslavement. His sentence was long but not cruel. The Council treated prisoners well. They gave him food, shelter, and access to entertainment. They even let him communicate with other Krell prisoners. Every day Vexilon shared the same message with his people. Stay away from Council space. The humans are there. And humans do not fight like anyone else in the galaxy. They do not fight for territory or resources or pride. They fight for people. Any people. All people. And if you threaten people they have decided to protect, they will destroy you utterly. The younger Krell warriors often laughed at these warnings. They called Vexilon a coward. They said that humans had just gotten lucky, that the Krell would have won if they had been better prepared. Vexilon let them believe that. They would learn the truth soon enough if they were foolish enough to attack anyone under human protection. They would learn what he had learned in those terrible 17 minutes above. Ruth 7. Humans were not the strongest species, not the fastest, not the most advanced. But they were the most dangerous, because they had learned to survive on a world that had tried every day to kill them, and they had brought that survival instinct to the stars. The galaxy had a new apex predator now, one that protected instead of hunted, one that saved instead of destroyed. But still an apex predator, still dangerous, still absolutely unstoppable when defending their pack. And in humanity's eyes, every living being in the galaxy was part of their pack now. That was the lesson of Vareth 7, that was the truth that would echo through galactic history for generations to come. Deathworlders did not send help. They sent fleets, and the galaxy would never forget it.